Here it is. This is what I want to get into. If I'm a Warrior fan, I know they talk about the Klay game. The Klay game. Is a Klay game coming? I'm going to tell you something right now. I would give up any future Klay game. I would just say, take it off the table. I don't want it. But I do want the last couple games of Klay. You give me the last couple games of Klay, I don't need a Klay game.
Well, game 4 especially.
Definitely. Absolutely.
Especially the last 2.5 quarters of game 4 where he hit just about every big shot the Warriors needed to avoid being in a real compromising position.
I mean, one of the things that I think the issue sometimes with Klay is he wants to be a part of it so bad that he overdoes it. How many times, like, you look at that game on Sunday, Klay was 9 for 15, 4 for 9. He was efficient. His defense was good. It's pretty good for what they're asking him to do right now. It's like that Klay Thompson is good enough to be that piece on a championship team.
Agree.
And it's kind of what he was last year. I've just felt like he's kind of stopped thinking about himself. You know what I mean? Like he's just let me ask you this. He used to be able to impact games even when he didn't shoot terrifically because of his defense. He can't do that quite as much now. But I just thought in that flow of the game on Sunday, for him to take 15 shots in a game like that, but be as good as he was with 15 shots, I mean, I don't know if it's growth, but man, now, to me, that was a big time. Now having taken a step back, a day or two to look at it, Klay doesn't play a game like that very often, but he's played a few more lately than he's played in a while. So I just want to give him some credit for really being discerning on Sunday.
They just can't afford a 9 of 15 to be a 9 of 19. And because those extra possessions the other way would have done them in that game. And it's an extremely fine line. And I just think the question is more, do you trust moving forward that Klay will continue to play that way, or is he going to revert back? Because the bad games tend to, and you've been all over this, the bad Klay games tend to really hurt the Warriors more than the bad Klay games of the past.
Right. And I think
it needs to be a subtle bad game if it's going to be a bad game.
Right. And you know what? 9 for 19, I think I'll even take if he's 4 for 10 from 3.
But 9 for 19, the Warriors would be down 3-1 right now.
They might be. I mean, they would be if you're going to use the numbers and pretend nothing else changes.
Sure.
Absolutely, positively.
But I'm just saying it puts you more at risk is the general point there.
But this is what I mean is, and I think what we both agree on, and by the way, if you want to jump into the conversation, 888-957-9570 is the number. We're talking about Klay Thompson and just how solid he was. Listen, Klay has been up and down this year. I think we can all acknowledge that. He's been up and down. Had a great couple months shooting the ball in February and March. Beginning of the season wasn't very good, but I'll take that Klay Thompson any day of the week, that Sunday game. 9 for 19, I can live with. He can't have an 8 for 24 now. That's where I think. See, I'm not going to be like Guru. Oh, he's not having any more of those.
He might.
That's why I'm not going to be my main man Guru. But it looks like he's conscious now more than he has been in the past that I can't have one of those games where I get in my own head and I get stubborn.
It all gets back to steady beats Sacramento, which is kind of my overarching theme for this series. It's why Moses Moody's been able to play and be effective in this series to a certain extent. Players that just, if you play steady against the Kings and you don't make a lot of mistakes, you don't take extra bad shots, you don't give them the extra possessions off the turnovers or off of the inability to control the glass to where they're getting a bunch of extra boards, the frenetic pace of play. The Warriors really, I thought, played Sacramento's style of game in Game 4. And when you're hitting shots, it's great. As we saw in the first couple of games, when you're not hitting shots, you can be in trouble in pretty quick order as far as the Warriors in this matchup. But as, I just keep coming back to steady beats Sacramento, and that goes for Steph not turning it over. That goes for Klay and his shot selection. The Warriors have really
Poole shot selection and turnovers.
Yeah, it's like Poole may not shoot well, but he can't be missing layups and kicking the ball to the other team going the other way for dunks.
Right, exactly. 888-957-9570 is the number. Warriors in a Game 5 in a first round. That's got to be a first. I mean, not a first, but this is going to be the longest first-round series of the Kerr era?
The longest?
First-round series of the Kerr era.
It might already be. Well, I think they had one that went 6.
Well, it's going to...
So it's already going to go 6.
The Clippers.
Yeah, it was one of those Game 5s they lost when they were up 3-1.
That's right.
And then went back to L.A. and put it. That was the old I'm Kevin Durant series. You know who I am.
That's right. 415, Thompson was due. He came out and said he wants a max. Okay. Well, he didn't come out and say that.
Duh.
It was reported, but he didn't come out and say that.
That, by the way, would be another example
Thank you.
That, but for those in the back or 90 miles away, that's another example of something gets reported, and it's a reporter putting something out there that someone's camp wants put out there.
Right.
Hello.
And as long as we're catching people up,
may just throw a few of those in here and there.
Well, there was Shams Charania did report something in the last day or two. He said league sources have told me the Warriors want to retain Draymond Green. All right,
cool.
Whatever that means, because he's under contract for next year, unless he doesn't want to be under contract for next year. It all starts and ends with Draymond Green. Joe's in San Francisco. Hey, Joe, how you doing, man?
Hey, Matt. Hey, JD.
What's up, man?
A couple words about Klay. Klay's always had these kind of streaky offensive games. He's always been great defensively, but he's always been kind of ephemeral, and he shoots great, doesn't great. Then he misses off a couple days. But the thing is, nowadays, there's no Andre Iguodala, David West, Sean Livingston to chip in points and to cover over those rough games. That's why when he has a bad game, there's no buffer anymore on this team to cover for those things. So if he plays the way he played, he's great. And I love how he was backing down Herter. He had a little jump shot turnaround, 2 points. If he can do that, this team's going to go far. But because there's no margin, where's the margin coming from? He doesn't play well.
Well, and that's the thing. And that's the thing. Sometimes I think of Klay sometimes is all or nothing. Well, I don't think that was all on Sunday, but it certainly wasn't nothing.
It was a lot closer to all.
Right, and that's you get that out of Klay. We got a new ball game.
But it goes to your point about the fact that really good Klay, even if it's not great, what it used to be Klay is still enough to help this team win multiple series and or maybe contend for a championship. I think that's the point.
He did that last year. He was absolutely as integral as anybody else was for that championship last year. Somebody got to him and said, yeah, they're going to remember you as not... You know what I mean? It's almost like somebody told Klay, you're going to be remembered as not really chipping into that fourth one. And I'm like, what? Like, he was as legitimate as anybody.
It just feels like he's been walking around all year with the thought of every time he has a great game, it's like an FU to everybody who said he had a bad game the game before, when he had a bad game the game before.
Right.
Like he's walking around like there's just I don't know, there's an anger to it that I don't...
Defiance, yeah.
That I don't get. Like, I just don't... Almost like, hey, when I have these great games... STFU about the other ones or whatever. Da.
I mean, honestly, he's a competitor.
Or how dare you even say that I had a bad game? Like, I'm allowed to have bad games.
Right.
He can feel how he wants to feel, but he's played, I think, with a weight this year.
I don't think
a lot.
Would any Warrior fans disagree with that? and I think that's the great way to put it. I use the word cloak. It feels like someone's cloaking Klay Thompson. He just doesn't feel like he's the Klay we all just. I don't know. But I do. You said it best. He seems to be playing with a little bit of a weight.
And in fairness to him, maybe he just thinks people have been completely out of line with the way that the bad games have been discussed. Like, hey, the bad games haven't been as bad, or I've had other bad games in the past, and nobody's come down my road. Are you coming down my road now because I'm older? Like,
right.
What? Like,
and I think the injury's got a lot to do with it. The injury's got a lot to do with it. Because I think Klay looks at the injury as UMFs don't understand how much I work to get back here. And I understand that. But if you just look at it from a basketball perspective, then you have to ask the question, well, he's got all the way back to Klay. Well, even if the answer is no, it doesn't mean he's useless. I'll tell you what, he made a shot. He made a shot on Sunday that you're not going to believe this, JD. He made a shot on Sunday where I thought he could become a totally different player.
Wow.
He had Herder in the mid post.
Okay.
And it wasn't the one on the baseline where he drove, he took a dribble, the one that's kind of that was on the highlights. It's the one where he caught it, he didn't dribble, and he just shot it. Like, he just shot it. And he didn't shoot. It wasn't a jumper.
Yeah.
He had separated just enough. And he knew Herder's height and Herder's reach. And he got about 3 or 4 inches off the ground, shot it on the way up, and it was nothing but net. And I was like, this guy could be a post-up player at some point.
For sure.
I mean, not a Barkley, but this guy...
It was just a real measured
play.
I know exactly.
I was like, wait a minute. You're telling me he's making shots like that where he's not fully squared up, doesn't have his legs under him, doesn't take his normal, it was nice.
In some ways, a couple of more of those a game and a couple of less heat check threes might help.
True.
Especially in this series.
So he was 9 for 15, and he was 4 for 9. So that makes him obviously, 4 for 6 from 2.